joining us for another episode of Book Reviews with Zen and Joy Garcia. We're super excited to be here with you to introduce this month's book, which is the
Assatir. It is the Secret Book of Moses, and it's an incredible study. It's one that not a lot of people have heard about or read about. It was translated by Dr. Moses Gaster in 1927, and includes so much information like the Chronicles of Jeremiah, the Pirkei Rabbi Eleazar, and the Legends of the Jews. Has numerous hundreds of footnotes of other ancient texts which the author of the Assatir had compiled and pieced together to bring out the fullness of the story, of what is a parallel account of Genesis and then the lives of the patriarchs going forward to becoming the nation of Israel and being in covenant with the Most High God, Yahweh. So I do recommend that people examine it, study it, and also review the footnotes, because it brings out a lot of information that we're no longer have access to, and which in doing the research and study will also fill in the blanks and connect the underlying truth, which makes up the full story of the biblical narrative.
So Zen, I know that we had just confirmed right before this interview that the Assatir is actually no longer in print anywhere. In all of, at least the research that I could do in terms of the internet, we could not find any other place that prints these books anymore. So with that said, I was wondering, how did you come across this text, and how did it change your research? How did it fully just change the view that you had on the studies that you were doing?
Well, I had heard about it mentioned in, for instance, I believe it was the Pirkei Rabbi Eleazar, and all of these different texts that have all these numerous footnotes, they do connect to each other, going back to the early church and what was available at that time, because there was no authorized canon. And the disciples of Christ, the truth seekers during that time, they read and studied everything they could get their hands on. And so that's why the individuals that were very well researched and very well studied in putting together books like this, they utilized and also referenced numerous other ancient sources, which again are being contemporary modern scholars. A lot of this information is no longer available, but it is at least referenced in books like this. For instance, we have the work of Berosus, which you cannot find anywhere, but it is mentioned and cited in other historians and the work of others over time. And so we have that legacy reaching us now, but as far as the books that Berosus originally wrote, none of that is available to us anymore.
Yes, and this is about 500 pages worth of material, all in 14-point font. But is there anything else that you wanted to mention about the Assatir?
Yeah, one last thing. The reason I believe this book is not in print is because of the way the PDF or the electronic copies, they had numerous mistranslations, things that you couldn't read. And so C.J. Austin, who was the individual that translated or made this available, reformatted it for us and for Sacred Word Publishing, she took numerous hours going through the corrections and also increasing the font, and then also reallocating the footnotes to the ends of every chapter, whereas they had been at the end of every page. And that also made it confusing. And so this book is very easy to research, very well easy to study. And because of the large font, it's less taxing on the eyes and mind. And you can do very in-depth study over longer periods of time, in my opinion.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Zen, for doing this, another book review. And thank you everyone for watching once again. And we'll of course leave a link to this book where you can directly take a look at the preview that we have, as well as purchase it if you'd like. We thank you so much for your love and your prayers, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, and thank you, Carol, for taking the time to actually make this available to modern consideration. So thank you.
Thank
and
you.
God bless all.
Shalom.
Shalom.